All righty. We want to call the meeting to order. I want to welcome everyone for coming today. Welcome everybody watching at home. At this time, we ask everyone to stand and as we say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just a reminder, anyone who hasn't signed in, we ask you to sign in. So the return of school presentations.
I just wanted to ask the board, since we're back to regular in-person meetings, as you know, we used to have each school do a presentation at our board meetings, and if we want to get back to doing that, I think now would be the time, because we would have our first group in August, which means we'd had 5 schools leading up to Christmas, and then we'd have 5 after Christmas, so that would give us our 10 meetings. Of course, July and June, there would not be any but one presenting. If you all wish to do that, all you need to do is just give me a nod. We don't need a vote, but we'll just get them back in here, and we'll put their names in a hat and let Rebecca draw them out, and whoever gets August gets to go first.
Sounds great. Sounds like a plan.
Great.
So we'll get them
Yes.
back in.
That way we can showcase what they're doing.
Okay.
Good deal. Next, a return of our mountain movers recognition.
As you all know, leading up to the pandemic, every month we recognized a teacher of the month, a classified employee of the month, and then we also recognized a community member or an organization that had provided excellence in service to our community and to our students and parents. I believe it's time to return to that as well. As you know, they always get a certificate and a Medal of Excellence for their dedicated service to our community, and I would like to begin that program again starting next month as well. We would recognize 10, we would recognize 30 individuals or community organizations here during the next 10 months and do that August through May as well. If we're going to do that, we need to get the nomination process out there and get done.
Okay. That sounds great.
Everybody's good
Yes,
with that
I
as
agree
well?
with that. Yes, sir.
All right, then we'll return, and you're going to ask me about revisions, and there are none. The agenda has been set for a while.
Okay. Next, our public forum, ARP Estill LEA plan.
As part of the American Rescue Plan, and
It is right there. Okay.
in terms of the budgeting of ESSER 3 money, and also
That's just not sideways.
also the safe return to in-person instruction, we're supposed to seek public input. We decided to try to have a public forum tonight, and as you say, I mean, we've got a local paper here, but in terms of community or parents or whatever, it doesn't appear that we've had anybody that has decided to come out. I can, again, if you want me to, just give you a quick overview.
Please.
And we thought that maybe the best way to try to reach our parents and community is after tonight, that we would take this document here that's part of the GMAP system that talks about the district spending plan for ESSER 3, and we would develop a survey that we would send out to our parents and community members and ask them to maybe sort of rank order of what they feel like are the most important needs of our district going forward. As always with our ESSER funding, there has been pretty much the same guidance. The guidance for ESSER 3 has been pretty much the same guidance that you've seen for ESSER 1 and ESSER 2. You may also seen this calls CARES Act dollars. So if you see CARES 1, CARES 2, CARES 3, just for anybody that is watching on YouTube or anybody that may watch this recorded at a later date, For full disclosure, with ESSER 1, there was CARES Act dollars and there was GEARS money as well, which that was the governor's fund in terms of GEARS. We received a little bit over $1 million during that time, as 900 and some thousand dollars in CARES Act funding. There was approximately $170,000 worth of GEARS funds, which was spent on technology. And during ESSER 2, which was last fall, and that money has been budgeted and we have started spending that money. For instance, right now during our summer program was one of the items that we were spending that money on. We received $3.7 million during that time frame. Now, ESSER 3 is the funding that was approved by Congress right after President Biden had taken office, and the district is receiving a little bit over $8 million in that particular fund. So altogether, the district has received a little bit over $12.5 million. The important thing for everybody in the public to know is this is one-time money. This is not money that should be used to support long-term employees in terms of positions. It wasn't, in my opinion, you've seen a lot of districts that have jumped out there and they've given bonuses and some of those particular things to their employees. I felt like that money, it was not probably a good use. Angie and I talked about it for a long time. And there's some issues when you start handing out bonuses. There's some Kentucky revised statutes concerning bonuses for employees and how those are handed out. And then just recently, within the last few weeks, we have seen additional guidance from the federal government that says, hold on a minute, this money really wasn't meant to provide bonuses, because in order to provide some type of bonus, or you have to make sure that employees were going above and beyond what their regular job duties are. Well, for instance, what is the job duty of a teacher? What is the job duty of a custodian? What is the job duty of a bus driver or a superintendent? No matter what that is, and quite frankly, did we have to do some additional things? But most of those, nobody was working additional hours, no more than they would normally have done. And when you're given a bonus for work that is covered under your job description and under your current contract, quite frankly, you can't get a bonus for doing your job. So I think there's going to be a lot of kickback. And I'm sort of glad that as a board, you all decided not to go that way. We decided as a board we were going to give a 2% raise over the next 2 years. And then anything additional the state may give, which of course with the $1.1 billion budget surplus, I look for there to possibly be some teacher raises and employee raises for state employees in the coming budget session next year. But a raise means so much more when it comes down to retirement. A bonus is a one-time thing that you go out and blow or spend or do whatever you want to. But that raise means a lot over years. It's compounded over the years, and it also means a lot more towards their retirement. So that's not really, if there's questions out there before about bonuses and stuff, that's why we stayed away from them, if you remember. But what's this money used for? And you'll see this in the survey that we'll put out. Our plan is to develop a survey. I've talked to Jeremy about it. We're going to use the document he had pulled up there just a minute ago to really look at how do we provide extra services to our kids? How do we what are we doing to address, you hate to use the term learning loss, because we think that most of our kids did learn. It wasn't so much about learning loss. It was so much more about the progress that they could have made was not met because of the remote instruction and not having that one-on-one interaction with teachers. So we've got to address academic deficiencies that we see within our students. And you're doing that right now with ESSER II funds in terms of summer school. We're providing summer school for the first time in our school district for a long time. You're also seeing provisions for health services and mental health services. And as you know, bless you, Tammy. As you know, there have been some employees that's been hired through these funds, but in doing that, we've also let these employees know that, hey, this is a 3-year spending plan. This money has to be spent in 3 years. So if you're hired with ESSER 1, 2, or 3 funds, just know that at the end of that 3rd year, when it comes to October 1 of 2024, these funds are to be expended. They're gone. So as a board member, if you're sitting here during that time, you're going to have to make decisions in that spring with your new superintendent at that time to decide, are you able to add additional positions at that time? In other words, to keep the social worker that we are trying to hire, or to keep your mental health counselor in some of those positions, your college and career counselor that we've hired at the Area Technology Center. So you've got those funds. Area Technology Centers and Career Tech Ed was another area that they asked you to focus on. They also asked us to focus on facilities, and especially air quality and water quality within your facilities, that maybe you could use this money to address some of the issues that you're not able to address through your normal capital outlay process. Technology is the big thing as well. And as you know, what this funding has allowed us to do is that we have ramped up our one-to-one initiative to the point that we were pretty much setting at 7 through 12 one-to-one by the end of next year, and possibly we're exploring another grant opportunity that's came about by the American Rescue Plan, that we may even be able to have one-to-one computer devices this year, K through 12. But if it doesn't happen now, next year, next fall, every student in the Estill County school system will not only have a device, they will also, if they do not have internet, they will have hotspots that will provide internet that will allow them, if you do have times where you have to go to remote instruction because of COVID issues and those types of things, you're able to carry on instruction with the teacher having direct access through technology to those students. So those are the major areas. There's been some additional funding. There is some ESSER II set-aside funding that we can apply for. That's for direct services to students. That's about another I think it's right around $160,000. And then we have just found out also that there is a set-aside amount of money for special needs services for students that receive special needs. It's $128,000. So we're exploring the use of those funds. We're going to apply for everything. We're going to try to spend it. We're going to try to get the money and spend it. That's what it's for, to address the needs of our students and families. Oh, and the last big one is that we can use this money to address family needs. And that's what we did with the back-to-school supplies. I hope that we didn't hurt a lot of our businesses that were trying to sell back-to-school supplies, but we just felt like that it was important. We set aside about $75,000 for back-to-school supplies. As you know, none of our families are going to have to buy any supplies unless they want to supply their own backpack. They don't have to buy any supplies this coming school year. We'll even give them a backpack. If they don't care about a generic backpack, we have backpacks as well. So we will be supplying all school supplies. We've used ESSER II funds to provide for The backpack program that was impacted by the pandemic, we have supplied food vouchers to our families. We met their needs during the flood. So you can use this sort of like in the old term, in terms of munis, you know, you have that welfare category. And welfare has a bad connotation here. It's not what you think of as just a regular welfare program, but it's meeting the wellness needs of your students and families. So we'll get a survey out there to give our parents opportunity for input, but we'll have to cut that off about July 31st because we have to have our plan in by August 31st. We've got until August 31st to have a completed plan in there and to have a budget in there. As you'll see here in a minute, we're going to explore several facility issues possibly in use of ESSER funds to go above and beyond what we've done with our capital outlay funds. The second part of this is that you have to also have a safe to return to in-person instruction and continuity of services. In other words, the continuity of services plan would be, what do you do if you have the third grade wing at Estill Springs has to go to remote instruction for a couple weeks because of an outbreak of COVID or different things like that. We've got to make sure that we're meeting the instructional needs of our students. And of course, as everybody knows, the push is we've got to get kids back in school. We've had enough of sitting at home. I did have Erica. Erica has drafted a back-to-school plan that right now is still a work in progress. Jeremy, if you want to go to that, that's also there as an attachment that you all have been able to look at. This plan right now is very generic. We were waiting for guidance from KDHP, and that guidance came out yesterday afternoon. And, I think that my personal opinion, they're trying to walk back what they did in June. But what happened in June is when the mask mandate was lifted completely, safe, healthy at school guidelines was rescinded, by KDE, by KDHP, by the governor's office. All those mandates, all those restrictions were lifted. I think the message basically was sent, we're going back to school in the fall and we're going back without masks. And I think that's what the public expects. That's what most people, and you're going to see a big uproar, I believe, here in the next few weeks over this issue. You've already seen it. I think I've seen a couple of school districts where they've reinstated the mask mandate for schools and they're having an absolute fit. And what's a shame here is this has become a political issue. Health and safety should never become a political issue when it comes to what we're dealing with. This shouldn't be a Republican issue. It shouldn't be a Democratic issue, independent issue. Doesn't matter if you're Baptist, Protestant, Catholic, whatever. This is a health and safety issue. And, but now guys, I don't know if y'all agree with me. I think by the actions that they took in June, I think that our community fully expects that we're returning to school without masks. And I think that if that's where we're headed, I think we have to strongly recommend that if you've not been vaccinated, you need to wear a mask. And then if that's where we're going, and I just know recently that even in the last few days, we've started having numerous parents call and say, listen, if they're going to have to wear a mask, I want to know how they're going to do remote instruction. So they're already anticipating and they're wanting to pull kids out. So I don't know that my personal recommendation to us and how we're proceeding, unless you all tell me different, is that our recommendation is going to be that at South Springs and West Urban that all students should wear a mask. We're not going to mandate it, but I think that should be our recommendation because those individuals have not had an opportunity to be vaccinated. Middle school and high school students, here's the issue. Students that have been vaccinated do not have to wear a mask. but we're not allowed to ask for their vaccination status.
Yep.
So it's very easy for a kid to say, oh yeah, I've been vaccinated. We're not allowed to ask. We're not allowed to pick up the phone, call the health department and say, you got a record of this kid being vaccinated? And I think a lot of it's because right now that you're dealing with a vaccination that has FDA approval on a trial basis, but it's not got full approval. And we've not even had vaccinations for students 12 and under. So we've got an issue about how we go back. And not only did we have an issue about how schools go back, we also have a huge funding issue. Because as you know, all your provisions that allow you to have remote instruction days, that unlimited NTI days, using 1819 attendance data for funding purposes, all that's gone. Your attendance this year will set your seat formula for next year. So I mean, we're in a real pickle here, and I'm just going to be honest. I think the governor, the commissioner, and I don't think the Kentucky Department of Public Health, they can't sit here and continue to dump this in your all's lap, and that's what's happening. They're dumping it right squarely in your all's lap to make a decision, and you're in a no-win situation. If you mandate masks, you're going to have a mass exodus of kids leaving in-person instruction. And at that point in time, you're going to impact your funding. If we only go with a recommendation to wear a mask, we take a chance that we could have a breakout of COVID in one of our grade levels, in one of our classrooms, or whatever. Now, we can address those issues if we have a student that tests positive in a third grade classroom at Estill Spring or at West Irvin. We can mandate that once that positive test has come out, all students in that classroom have to have a mask until quarantine period is passed. You're still going to have to quarantine those students that was around them. Contact tracing is still going to have to take place. So you would have to contact trace all the students in that classroom. So the ones that was within 6 feet of that child for a period of more than 15 minutes in a day, they would have to quarantine, and everybody around them would have to quarantine. The rest of them, in my opinion, probably at that point in time should wear a mask until that quarantine date is up. If the quarantine date comes and passes, they could remove their mask again. But then if you had all of a sudden 5 or 6 kids in third grade in different classrooms, you may have to ask all third graders to wear a mask. And I think that's the targeted approach that that's probably the best thing we can do to keep us from just absolutely having a firestorm on our hands.
Yeah.
You can't argue when all of a sudden you have 5 or 6 kids at the third grade level on the blue wing. They can't argue that at that point in time it's not wise for everybody to be wearing a mask. Now, 4th and 5th grade would still be exempt. But then if you start having cases 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, the entire school may have to wear a mask. If you have multiple cases, you may have to go on remote instruction for a period of 10 days, just at West Irvin while everybody else was still in school. So I think our plan probably should be that our recommendation is that we strongly recommend that if you've not been vaccinated, you wear a mask. If we have breakouts, then we're going to have those guidance in terms of this is what happens if this occurs. You start seeing cases across all the schools, all of a sudden do you go back to wearing a mask on school buses and transportation if it's across all areas? As we know, if we lose 3 bus drivers to COVID, all of a sudden we can't transport kids. We can't hire bus drivers anyway. So, I mean, we're in a real pickle, just to be honest. And I don't care, this is my 37th year in education, and I'll say it, and I hope the commissioner and the governor and everybody sees it, and he'll be here, both of them will be here Friday for the ATC grand opening. What they're doing, dumping this to local boards, is dead wrong. And I know it's a political thing, but I'm just telling you. So that is what I'm thinking about in terms of return to school. if that's where everybody's sort of at, then we're gonna revise this to get this out there and let people know that COVID-19 will determine what kind of restrictions we have in terms of mask wearing, in terms of quarantines.
So it'll be kind of like
and all that.
on the numbers thing.
Yeah,
the
it'd be
numbers.
based on the numbers.
And they're saying that a vaccine for under 12 will not be available and probably until mid-winter. They announced that today.
So you're talking somewhere December at the earliest.
Okay.
So now immediately going back, we're going to have vaccination clinics at the middle school and high school.
Good.
We're going to try to get as many middle school and high school students vaccinated as possible. We have let our coaches know, we can't require our athletes to get a vaccination. But the message that I have communicated to them, and I know we won't wrap this up, we don't want to go long, but I've communicated to our athletes, the best way to ensure that our football team plays 10 football games this year and participates in the playoffs is that the players and the coaches get vaccinated. That's the best way to ensure you don't lose your season. Because if Joe Smith gets COVID, at that point in time, they're going to have to produce a vaccination card. Because if they've been vaccinated, the rest of the team does not have to quarantine. Any player that's not been vaccinated has to quarantine and cannot participate for 10 days. Any player that's had the vaccination can continue to play. If you lose 12, 13 football players, you're not going to be able to play on Friday night. Same goes for soccer, volleyball, basketball as we go throughout the season. All the same rules apply. Kid gets sick at school, they come to the nurse's station, parents are going to have them tested. We can't determine that it's just for flu. Parents are going to have to go get tested, and we're going to have to wait for a result in order to know. You're still going to have the quarantine rooms at each of the school, or the safe rooms, that a kid can wait on somebody. I firmly believe that we really limit visitors in our schools. And I have no problem, I believe that any parents and visitors, us not knowing, we could require masks for parents coming into the building. I don't know if that's a wise thing, but we've got to think about that. What is our visitor policy? Because last spring, for instance, when Peter and them needed to do walkthroughs of the high school and some of those things, and there was kids present, they had to do that on Wednesdays after kids had left at 1 o'clock, or they had to do it after school hours. That visitors could not come into the building and just be roaming around.
They never let me in. They always.
So we've got to address the visitor policy as well. I mean, does anybody have any comments on that? And I think we've covered it enough for the public, for anybody watching. Be looking for the survey coming out, and we'll be given a more definitive, safe return to school in person here within the next couple of weeks. Sheila, I know you had your hand up a minute ago. Did you
I
have a
was going
comment?
to tell you about the under 12 vaccinations.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments? Do you feel like we're wrong in how we're proceeding? Do we
No.
need to look at something else? Any ideals that we need to
That's pretty
implement?
much the only way we can go.
Yeah, I think right now, I may be dead wrong, but I think the governor, KDHP, KDE, I think there should be some regret in the announcement they made in June, not knowing exactly what was going to happen with this
The way they
variant.
worded it.
This variant is more contagious, faster traveling, and we're going to see if we have a child that has COVID and it is the variant, you're going to see more kids infected. You're going to see the possibility of remote instruction per classroom, per grade level, per school. Lord forbid if it gets in your transportation system, Lord forbid if it gets in your food service system, because you don't have enough employees to overcome that.
But you can't mandate it.
So we've just got to play it by ear, and hopefully everybody, again, it shouldn't be a political thing if numbers start going out the roof. Bottom line, there needs to be action to take care of the kids. Any other comments? And I'll hush. You all know I can talk all day. I burned up 2 hours in a radio show the other day in 15 minutes.
I mean, I'm also a fan of, you know, if students come to school, if they're concerned for their own health, wear a mask, you know, so I mean, it's out there and so.
And it's hitting the younger generations.
And that's where your numbers are climbing right now. And of course, they're going to have to take personal responsibility. And how do you lose personal choice? Is when it becomes reckless and numbers get out of hand, then of course personal choice will go out the window. But I guess we have to just say we're going to give everybody an opportunity to do what's right. And that still may not be enough, but we'll see. School districts are going to be in a heck of a bind when it comes to funding for the 22-23 school year. I'm just telling you because you're going to see a lot of schools impacted by COVID absences. The legislature, in my opinion, will have to do something. There's no way they can let it go back to pre-pandemic funding formulas in order for us to survive. Okay, Mr. Covey, we'll get the survey out there and we'll get answers back, and then we'll be in school by the time we meet again, but I'll report back to you all at the next board meeting.
Sounds good. All right, moving on, our facilities, our construction update of the Area Technology Center.
I guess we'll get Jeremy on board here and Peter.
All right, guys, we had a meeting today, our monthly meeting, so that went real well. Kind of take you, like I always do, around what's going on in each area, and if you have any questions at the end. So right now, we was able to obtain both our... Can I hear?
Go ahead, Jimmy, I'm sorry.
We was able to do both of our punch lists as far as RTA and Codell. We was able to hand those to our contractors to start knocking out. Most of them's finishing up this Friday, and we'll start checking those things off next week as we get closer to our final completion date. So Area B, back towards all the labs, furniture started to come in throughout the building, and we're down to final cleaning those areas. We was able to go back and epoxy the Diesel Tech lab. We caulked all the control joints in there, and so it looks a lot better. Mr. Sutter can tell you about that. And then the other two labs look good, and then the last lab, advanced manufacturing, that had the back cracking, as you all are aware, because you all approved the pricing, and we appreciate that. It looks totally better, 100% turnaround.
Anything would be an
As soon as
improvement.
y'all get over there, it'll be done on Monday, so you can really start to see it going down right now, but I advise you all go over there next week to take a look at it. So Area A, same thing, furniture's coming in throughout the building. Finishing up punch list items down there, but final cleaning is taking place Sunday. And then as far as the Pedway Tower, the Pedway Tower is getting flooring down right now. VCT stair treads are done, and we're going to be waxing those floors over the weekend. So that gets us to a point where we can start punching it out and finishing it up. I think the plan is to wax and finish all the way to the Pedway Tower and close those doors off when the governor comes, which Mr. Sutter will probably talk about in a minute. But let's move to the outside, the exterior work. We're still doing the concrete work at the Pedway Tower around the perimeter there, buttoning that area up. Our sod has started to come in, as you can see. We look to finish it by Monday also. Final pavement has started in the front parking lot, which is the east parking lot, and the west parking lot got finished. We milled and overlaid your middle school parking, teacher parking area, so we did that today. And then tomorrow we'll be finishing up the main drag up to the train as exterior punch and stuff, that's gonna take place next week. And as all the contractors are aware, everybody is to be out of the building and 100% complete by the 23rd. So that's our go, and that's a huge milestone, and that's our target. I'll be happy to answer any questions, and Mr. Sutter, if you want to go into more detail, I'll piggyback on you. But
Yeah, let me just add a couple of things. You know, we looked at the floor extensively in advanced manufacturing, and you know, painting that floor or staining that floor is probably what? If I was going to say, you know, you have a level 1, level 2, level 3 flooring situation in a building, I would about classify staining that concrete like a level 1. You know, you would stain it, it gives it a good look, it's cheap, it's not got a big expense to doing that. You know, level 2, I would consider, okay, you're going to lay BCT tile, or you're going to lay some type of tile, or something along that line, or some type of floor covering that's sort of a mid-grade. And of course, with that, you get the increased cost. As you all saw, the advanced manufacturing lab, structural engineers did take a look at it. It is not anything structural by any means. It just, concrete will crack as it cures. That probably cracked a little bit more than what we're used to seeing. But the structural engineer did look at it. It's safe. By using a level 1 flooring solution, it did nothing but just escalate that issue. It made it look a lot worse than probably what it was. So we really came back. I said, okay, how do we fix it? And the only way to fix it is that because of the activities that go on in that lab, you couldn't put floor tile, you couldn't put some type of laminate flooring. You got to have something that's industrial based, and that's what we did. We contracted straight with Martina Brothers, who did the tile work in the building, to come in there and put, it's sort of like, it's sort of an epoxy flooring, but it's a thicker flooring, like you see in a lot of our restrooms in our new buildings, like the restrooms at the bus garage, the flake flooring. The epoxy goes down, it fills in all the uneven areas, and it, you know, then you add a flake or some type of granules that would give it some color. That's what we decided to do. So, and they even went above and beyond. We had them go above and beyond to really try to seal those cracks before that flooring surface even went on. We paid a premium for it, but you get what you get when you pay for something. I mean, that one lab in itself was about $30,000. We had the money in contingency, and we decided, hey, let's do it. We may want to come back and do the other floors as time goes to see what that happens. Again, I think it was a good idea to try to use the most economical flooring situation that we had, but I don't know that it's going to work because we're already starting to see some chipping of the paint in the construction technology lab. So if it's going to start chipping up and coming up, then that's not going to go either. That doesn't look right. You know, you could have that in the tool rooms. If a tool room, if you know the stain comes up or you've got a spot, you know, you can spot those back. But that lab area with all that heavy traffic, at some point in time, I think we may want to consider doing all of them. We'll see how the diesel floor looks. I think it looks a lot better. They used the wrong surface in there. They used a different paint. It was supposed to be an epoxy paint. They went back and sealed all those cracks and stuff that was in there, and the control joints that were really, that were just difficult to saw out. So we put a different product in there. It looks a whole lot better, but we can make that decision over the next several months to see, hey, do we want to maybe redo all of them? We had a price to do all of them at $108,000, and I didn't feel comfortable to do them all, to be honest. I felt like we needed to give the diesel floor a chance because they had used the wrong type of sealer and the wrong type of paint. So let's see if it works in the diesel lab. If it doesn't, we'll come back and we'll decide how we want to proceed. The other thing I would tell you is the Pedway Tower. I made the decision today Don't worry about the pedway tower. It doesn't have to be ready until August 5th when students are needing to use it to cross into the ATC. So I've asked them today to put all their concentration on the building this coming week so it'll be ready. Now, people will be able to go on the pedway, but what will happen, they'll get out to the end door at the pedway going into the high school portion of the building. It'll be locked. They won't be able to get through. So all that area will be cleaned up, hopefully. And then, yes, ma'am.
What about the lettering that's going on the
The
window?
lettering will not get here in time, but we have got it approved. There's some samples out there right now. It's just the corners of the letters and stuff. I think it's really going to look great. If you drive by, look at the 2 sample letters that's up there. And I think it's going to look really great because it appears from the road that you've got the white background with the blue and black outline letters. Of course, the flying E in the middle of that. And then on the inside, for the students that's walking, it's sort of got that tinted effect. They can see out and it looks like everything's like looking through a pair of sunglasses for them. Hopefully it's going to be heat resistant a little bit. And also it's going to provide that safety level that we've talked about for our students, that people can't sit out there and see who's on the pedway at any one time. So I feel like that's going well. And the last thing I'll touch on is that Jeremy can tell you, I've probably been a real bear the last 2 weeks, but I've been very aggravated about what took place on the outside, especially with our contractor concerning the paving of the roads and the PR work around that. 3 weeks ago, it was dry as a bone, and you could have hauled thousands of tons of gravel in. And Jeremy can tell, I was on to everybody that, hey, we're letting good days go away here. And he said, well, we got plenty of time, we got plenty of time, we got plenty of time. Well, who knew that the monsoon season was going to set in, and that now we're in a tropical rainforest environment with the amount of rain that we've had, and now rain has become an excuse. And quite honestly, I've not bought it. I'm sure I've been called a few names by some people here the last few weeks because I've been ugly about it. I'll just be honest. I told the contractors today during the construction meeting, our 80-year-old custodian here at the central office got here early this morning, and I said, what was you here early for, Margaret? She said, Mr. Saylor said there was just a lot of trash and things that had gathered up outside. And she said, you know, when the outside of a building doesn't look good, it doesn't matter how clean the inside is. People think you've got a dirty building. Now, there's somebody with experience. Margaret's been around here for a long time. And she came in early today to address the outside of the building, and that's my big concern. I know they're trying their best to work hard. Sod to be down, I believe, all those things. I'm just not sure what kind of shape the pavement is going to be in. I hope that it's in, but we've been promised, and quite frankly, I even feel lied to, and I'll just say it right here. I just wish people would just say what it is and not give me a bunch of lip, and that just bothers me. And I've made it very clear to Jeremy and Kenny at Codell. I've made it very clear at Peter. I've fussed at them as well. But hopefully, if we can just get a little bit of cooperation, we're hoping they'll be able to haul stone tomorrow. If they can haul stone, they can pour the curbs. If they can get the curbs poured and we get weather cooperating with us, next Wednesday and Thursday, they can at least lay the binder courses on that, and it will at least look presentable. Is it going to look pristine? I can tell you right now, it won't. Maybe we can keep the governor hogtied and keep them down in front of the building and not let them go out the back door. That's the hope. But, you know, and it's just like you got federal legislative offices there. You've got state legislative offices. You've got the governor. You got Miss Kentucky coming. You've got all these dignitaries, people that's coming to be a part of this event. We're expecting well over 200 people. We're inviting the public, be there at 2:30, but hopefully it will be what it needs to be. And I feel like that we had a good meeting today, and hopefully we'll get some cooperation. That's it on an update, unless you all have some questions for Jeremy or Peter.
Good.
All right.
Thank y'all.
So moving on, the pay application number 23.
Pay app 23, as you see, has been presented for $579,992.96. And that's for work that's been completed during the previous month. And my recommendation, as well as Codell's and Ross Tarrant, that we pay that application.
All right. We have a motion. All right, Donna, make a motion. And a second. Tammy Hardy, second. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries.
Thank you all.
Moving on, high school Phase 7 renovation project with the update.
Peter, Jeremy, I don't know which one of y'all want to take the con on this. Talk about the meeting that we had yesterday.
Well, yeah, right. So we had the pre-con yesterday, pre-construction meeting. All the contractors attended. It was a really good meeting. It's pretty much where we go over item by item what we require from them, and get them on board with getting submittals over to us so we can start the project on time. Right now we have a August, I believe 4th start date, and it's going to be broke up. I don't know if y'all have seen the schedule, but it's going to be broke up into 3 phases. We're going to be starting up on the softball, baseball fields, doing the renovations up there, and then we'll drop over after football season is completed and start on the field immediately. That's probably the biggest hurdle we have, the biggest milestone, is to get that football field up and running for the following year. And then we'll go to phase, which also in that phase 2 with the football field is the greenhouse, the new field house, and then the tennis courts also. And then we're moving on to phase 3, which will start, I apologize, I don't have the start date, but it will start
Last week of
in
May, I think.
probably July. Yeah, right after school, and this school year ends, we'll get in there, knock out that renovation, and have it ready in time for the following school year. So that's kind of our game plan on that end. But we was able to get everything, I believe, pushed through KDE faster than what we thought. So we will be starting faster than, or on, before time that we thought. So that's a good thing.
They actually approved it. They actually approved this on like June the 30th. And we really didn't get notification that it was approved. And we were sitting there waiting, and I made a call, and they said, we approved this July 1. So
Mr.
it worked out okay. I mean, it wasn't too late for us to know.
Mr. Saylor didn't want me to have a break or anything. No, okay.
That's a lapse in checks.
Job security right there.
Now, how are you going to get paid for that? When the ATC doesn't wrap up until the
That's
end
what
of
I'm
August,
saying.
and this one starts August 1, that's double dipping it.
That's double dipping. You gotta look into that, the contract there. No, I appreciate y'all, and if you have any questions on the Phase 7, I'll be glad to answer, or if Peter has anything to add.
Peter, anything you wanted?
No, I really enjoyed the meeting as well. It was a good group of contractors, and I know how important this one is to the district as well, and it's exciting to think about stuff happening up at the baseball and softball fields here, gosh, before we see you all again. So it's really...
I've told a lot of people the ATC was sort of my pet project. That's the one that was important to me, but I can tell you the pet project for this community is that high school and those athletic facilities. That's probably the #1 reason that we gained the support for recallable nickel during that discussion. And the board made a sacrifice. We only had about $7 million left on the $14 million project, and as you all know, part of that project is being paid for by $150,000 a year general fund contribution by the board, but that just didn't happen. It happened over about a 4-year period as we were looking forward through the eyeglass to see what was going to have to happen in order to make this happen. We knew that we were going to run out of money, but we were fortunate to get 2 grants that allowed us to have any money whatsoever. Just think if that $9.7 million worth of grants hadn't happened, you wouldn't have had the bus garage, and you would have had a much smaller area technology center. So a lot of good things happened with that. A lot of the contractors that are on the ATC, and they've been a good group overall. I know I fussed and went on this past 3 weeks, and I have to get past the fact that they went through a lot of issues at the ATC. They performed well, went above, and I just got to get past it. I'm just disappointed that we're even in the situation that we're in. We shouldn't be in that situation. And we talked about that a little bit. If baseball and softball is being done this fall, and it's going to open for use in February of 15 during when baseball and softball season starts, you can't blacktop roads in February. The blacktop plants aren't open. So the binder course for blacktop has to go down before December 1, before the blacktop plants close. So we can't have our paving contractor pushing it off. Next thing you know, there's no blacktop. So that can't happen again. And we're going to meet. That's part of Rising Sun. They're the general contractor, not the general contractor, but what's the correct
General
term?
trade.
They're the general trades contractor on this project, and I want to meet with them. I want to meet with their boss. I want to meet with Jason and Jeremy and Kenny and Peter, and I want to sit down and I want to make it clear. That road's got to be in, no ifs, ands, or buts. We cannot start the baseball, softball season on the gravel road. We're not going to do it. And the same thing with football. They're going to get that football stadium come about December. They should get it around the first week of November, no later than mid-November. So when they get that field, they basically have 7 months to be ready for football season, because Powell County is scheduled to play here. They're going to be the first team that will play on that turf besides the Engineers, and that will be a huge football game, huge crowd. That stadium has to be ready. There's no way we want to go back to Powell County next fall and play a football game because their stadium's not ready. So we've got to have commitments that, hey, we're going to make this happen. And, there's a lot of pretty Saturdays and stuff that's went by the wayside here over the last 6 weeks that people could have worked, and we wouldn't have been in the predicament we are. And if people thinks I've been mean this time, wait till we get to July and they start telling me that football stadium's not going to be ready. Because at that point in time, they only had to listen to me. I told them they'll all stand in line when the public starts badgering us, because we will get taken to the cleaners if that thing isn't ready to go. But we even have one contractor, we told them they could not start work until Monday the 26th. I believe you'll see work by a couple contractors, possibly even start place on that Monday. So they're ready to go. So looking forward to it, but now we got to figure out.
Yeah, I'd like to say that I'm proud to be a part of it also, and I speak for Codell myself that we are glad to be the team on this project also. So appreciate it, guys.
Jim Codell is a friend of this board. Don't ever forget it. He's very responsible for a lot of the grant funding and everything else. He's not only a friend of this board, he's a personal friend of mine, and I appreciate him very much.
All righty. Thanks for the update, Phyllis. Moving on, we need a motion to go into recess.
I make the motion.
No second.
Sheila makes the motion, Don is second. All in favor? Okay.
And again, this is for the purpose of paying for this project. So Ms. Donna, since you've come in, I think you probably need to call the district finance. Jeremy, if you don't care, you can pull up that agenda. It's up there on the board, and we need to call the district finance corporation to order.
At this time, I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Estill County School District Finance Corporation. First on the agenda, we have consideration of approval of a resolution of the Estill County School District Finance Corporation and advertising for bond sale and all other documents in connection with the bond sale or the bond issue.
Okay, we have with us, of course, Mark Rollins tonight, who you're very familiar with, and we're also blessed to have Barry Anderson with us tonight, a former superintendent of Grayson County Schools, and a friend of mine as well. He's a friend of the district. He works behind the scenes with Baird. So they're here tonight to answer any questions you may have on the bond sale and the bond resolution and all that stuff. So I'll hand it over to you guys, and thank you for coming all the way from Western Kentucky tonight.
Well, we're glad to be here. Am I good? Yeah, so just to give you a quick overview of what it is exactly you're doing, because I know several of you are new board members and probably haven't been through this process before. But school districts themselves in Kentucky are not actually allowed to enter into debt that extends beyond the end of the fiscal year. And that goes all the way back to the creation of the Kentucky Education Reform back in the early 90s. And so the workaround then that was created is that all school districts in Kentucky then formed a school district finance corporation that's comprised of you guys. And the school district finance corporation actually issues the bonds. So what you have before you as the finance corp is this resolution that's essentially authorizing the issuance of $13.4 million of bonds to finance this project. And then in a minute, when you adjourn this meeting, you'll call the board back together, and the board will enter into a contract, rent, and lease with the finance corporation. And basically, the Board of Education will enter into an annually renewable lease that will automatically renew every year unless you were to take action not to do so, which please don't do that. And those lease payments that you're making are equal to the bond payments, right? So the finance corporation technically owns the property. The school district leases it from them until those bonds are paid off, and then it goes back to the school board. And I will say, just to give you guys an overview of some things right now, interest rates remain very low. We are looking at issuing a 25-year bond for this project, which was necessary in order to make you guys able to afford it. But despite it being a longer loan than normal, interest rates are still very low, and I'm right now estimating about a 2.5%. But I think that's maybe on a touch on the conservative side because rates have come down in the last week or so. So we're fingers crossed that we'll actually get a lower rate than that on the 20th next week when we actually lock in the rate. That's when we're scheduled to do that. And part of that is the bond rating that the school district actually got this week. We went to Moody's again, as we did last time on the ATC project, and they reaffirmed your bond rating, which is A3. And they were very, in the report, they lauded the efforts I think that management has done. They assign a score, and they have the ability to peg you up or down from that score based on how strong they think the management is. You guys were pegged up above that based on basically how Mr. Saylor and Angie were doing in managing the finances for the school district. So I wanted to say publicly what a good job he's done there, and that it was noted by Moody's as well. But that's going to be play a factor in the interest rates that you guys get next week. Like I said, I'm optimistic that we're going to get a very low rate. Once we lock that in next week, we'll close the bonds on August 10th, and that's the date on which the money will actually go to the bank. And will be available then to start paying bills on construction. And like I said, I'm here, and I'll be here all through the board's side of this thing too. So if any questions come up, happy to help.
Anybody have any questions for Mark? Now look at him today. He hiked to Natural Bridge from the parking lot.
In these clothes.
in those clothes. He didn't change. That's
You're a
how.
bad man, Mark.
The park ranger
We-
actually stopped him and said, I don't think I've ever seen anybody come off that trail looking like this.
You know, they have a sky lift you could ride.
What's the fun in that?
It's very nice. The
I'm sure it is.
air,
We,
it's great.
yeah,
Relaxing.
That's what we'll do the next time.
yeah, that's what we'll do the next time.
And what we'll do, I mean, I guess it's part of the regular board meeting next time, as soon as the bond sells and we see exactly what the rate is and everything else, we'll bring Mark back and let Mark update us and say, okay, here's the final results of this, here's your bonding potential moving forward. You know, and we said, we know it's probably gonna be right around $1 million, somewhere in there, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, but it'll be somewhere in there, which is about where we were at 6 years ago when I took this seat for the first time. But look at the $35 million worth of construction that we've been able to do. That's what you got to look at. So I really appreciate, I'm glad to know that, this finance corporation, we own a lot of property. Between the 6 of us, we own a lot of property. I didn't realize we actually owned it. I mean, I don't think we can sell it, can we?
No.
We can't put a for sale sign on it. The old way of doing this is that the school board would have to approach the fiscal court, and the fiscal court would have to sell the bonds. That's why we've had so many issues we had to clean up in our deeds.
Right, because
Because,
that property was
especially with the
deeded to them.
EDA grant, because the high school property was still on record, and it was owned by the Estill County Fiscal Court. We need to clean up a couple others, and I'll try to do that. I've got that information up there. This property right here, right now, technically, the board doesn't own. The fiscal court still owns the property that this building sits on. I think we were cleaned up at Estill Springs, and I think we were cleaned up at West Urban.
School should be.
But this property, the high school's cleaned up now, so I know this property, and South Urban should be cleaned up.
Anything
if
you've issued debt
anybody
for,
addressed it.
anything you've issued debt for since like the early 90s should be back in the finance corporation's name.
I thought so too, but at the high school, it got overlooked.
Huh.
Because it didn't come up until we got into the EDA grant, and
Oh, yeah.
of course, with EDA, part of the issue of getting the EDA grant is that EDA actually has a lien against that property, and it had to be clear title between us and them. And when we got to researching it, none of that property was, so it got missed somehow. But I think most of it's taken care of right now. Any other questions for Mark? And if there's not, Barry, we're glad to have you.
Good to be here. Enjoy it.
And we need a motion to approve that resolution.
I make a motion.
Sheila makes a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Tammy Hardy makes a second. Do we have any discussion at this time? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. So
And now you
we're
need a
down to
motion to
adjournment.
adjourn.
I need
I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Sheila Samples makes a motion, and Brian Covey makes a second, and we need a vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so we need to call our meeting back to order at this time.
Make a motion.
Okay,
I second.
Sheila. Here we go.
Okay.
So
Five
can I
vote
ask
to
a
come back
question
to order.
also?
Do what?
Did Barry hike up there in his suit as well?
He did, and I have pictures.
Listen,
Barry did not have a tie on though, so he does
I
not,
didn't have a jacket on either.
he only gets a B rating. Mark gets the A+ rating. And if you took your jacket off, it might be a C rating.
But I did have a glass of tea with me, a styrofoam cup of tea, and went all the way up and came all the way down, didn't work.
And at least 5 people asked him on the way up, "What are you drinking?"
Sweet tea.
There you go.
That's my kind of filler. Okay, so we're down to the air quality upgrades,
No,
the ESER
no,
2
no, no.
million.
Jump too far. Go back.
We're back to
to-
consideration of approval.
Yeah, we gotta go back to B4. Yes.
Consideration of approval of a resolution authorizing a contract, rent, and lease with the Estill County School District Finance Corporation for the issuance of the series of 2021 school building revenue bonds and authorizing all other documents in connection with the bonds. So we need a motion for
Yes,
that.
that is our recommendation.
I will make a motion.
Brian Covey makes a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Sheila Samples makes a second. Do we have any discussion? I'd like to call for a vote at this time. All in favor? Any opposed? 5-0, motion carries. Okay, I guess we're down to air quality now.
Peter?
Yeah.
Gotta
Great.
Thank you all. I know you got a long trip home.
Thank you.
Good to see
You
you.
do gain an hour going back.
What's that?
You do gain an hour going back.
That's true.
Yeah.
You probably need sweet tea for the road.
Let it be said, Mark, I would never fight you.
You win.
Tell Carol you missed a real treat.
I'll do it. Have a good night.
All right, so the first one on the list here is West Urban Elementary School. I got an update from Thermal Equipment today. The shop drawing phase of this project is complete, and I think all of their equipment is on hand. They are looking for a full crew to be in the field this coming Monday at West Urban. There may be a little bit of work going on tomorrow in the administration suite there. So it is going to be a fast and furious project. They should be done before school starts. There is no change in that estimate on their front. And so that project, while not a lot has happened in the school yet, is still steamrolling along. And the second can be said the same for the district-wide air purification. I talked to Premier Mechanical earlier this week. The equipment that they wanted to use is a similar model to the one that was specified. It is equivalent, and that was approved by CMTA earlier this week. So their equipment is ordered, and they do have a crew set to start installation within the week. So, just as a reminder, that work is going on in West Urban and Estill Springs, the middle school and the high school.
And the reason for the change is that equipment was available, the
Yep.
specified equipment was not available. So the whole key is here on these two projects, and thank goodness they'll be done, is that the air quality in our buildings will be so much better. It will be very much enhanced over what it was in the past. And of course, with these bipolar ionization units, it's going to remove the virus particles from the air, which is going to be important if we have students in the buildings without masks. So I do think that not only hopefully it's going to protect us from COVID, but hopefully have another mild flu season as well. So it is effective with that as well. And really it puts West Urban back basically in a new building. You know,
Yeah, the makeup air units there is going to be absolutely
that had
really good
been
work.
not functioning at times, down more than they were up. But also the air quality with some changing of vent pipes and things in that building as well. Probably wasn't a good idea to put the vent pipes for the sewer system right next to the air intake system. Probably not very smart when it happened the last time, so that will be addressed. So real excited about those two projects. And Peter, you are telling this board that it will be up and in when students.
That is what I have been,
August 5th.
that is what I've been told today and yesterday by the contractors.
I would like to be able to send this board an email on August the 4th on opening day to let them know that. So
Okay.
please communicate to those contractors that they want to be paid on time,
Yep.
that they need to deliver on time.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I have something, because you were talking about, like, with the ESSER money for the air purifications and things. We had mentioned before about the air quality things they have for the buses. Have we been able to look into anything about that yet?
They have looked at that at the Department of Transportation, but at last thing, it's really hard to get things added to school buses. They're really funny about adding equipment to Kentucky school buses, and I do know that I did speak with Laura, the transportation director, and she was on top of trying to find out, but I do not believe there's been anything shake with that, but let me find out again.
What the company would have had that up there?
It was one of the companies, I'd have to look at my things from that conference, yes.
Bus purification.
It's $500.
It's $500 per bus. That's what we were.
And listen, we'd love to do it. One thing that you see happen a lot of times, you see a lot of these companies that come to these events and, you know, they're there to court you guys and stuff, and then they don't have approval. They don't have approval from KDE for some of those things. You see that quite a bit sometimes. I'm not saying this company's not. I am saying that I do know that from my past experience as a transportation director, they frown on, I mean, even the thing that drivers used to like to add a little round mirror for the blind spot on the mirrors, that was frowned on. If you put that mirror on there and there was an accident, you know, that was a no-no. That shouldn't happen. There shouldn't have been no mirror, which made no sense to me, but that's just the way it is. But let me follow up on that. I can get an answer, and I'll let you all know. If we can do it, of course, why would we not? Especially to protect our driver and our monitor as well as our kids. I'll get you an answer on that.
Thank you.
So we're down to future projects. We have a presentation by Ross Torrent at the August 19th board meeting.
Yeah, we wanted to share with, Peter was here last week, and we just started talking about, okay, as we move forward with our ESSER funding and some of the things that are left out there on this facility plan, you know, we need to look at how do we address these things. So these are a list of 6 projects or possible projects as we move forward. As we know, the HVAC system at the high school, we pulled from the construction project, and that's not so much the HVAC system itself, that's the controls.
Right.
Which can be paid for through ESSER funding because one person, one contractor is in charge of those controls. And instead of us having to bond $14.some million now, that allowed us to bond 13 something because we pulled that out of the project. We're going to pay for it with ESSER funds. The second one is the same thing. It'll be a separate BG1 that will do the sewer line, which was alternate number 1 of that project. So it can be a standalone alternate, and we're going to rebid that sewer line replacement. Of course, that's the clay line that is about 20 feet deep right in front of the gym that needs to be replaced because it is failing. And we'll keep our fingers crossed that we make it through the school year until we can get to May and replace that line, but that needs to be an ESSER project. Estill Springs Classroom Edition, I have the most recent numbers at Estill Springs, and right now Estill Springs enrollment is approaching 500, over 510 students. That building is built for like 480. So they are definitely overcrowded, and we don't see, even if they did fall back to 480, when you got a building at 100% capacity, it's pretty tight with a bunch of students there. So what we've looked at is how can we gain space and not change the appearance of that building to where it's going to make something. So we've got some ideals that Peter is working on to bring to you that would involve that you would turn the current media center into classroom space and then go out there on the side of the building as you go into the curve, the part of the yard, the front that's facing the road could become a new media center to have all the bells and whistles that would be involved with that. We're going to get an estimate on it, see what it's going to be. That would add about 4 classrooms to that building. And if we can do that, that could be paid for with ESSER funding, because how does that relate to the pandemic? Social distancing and providing additional space. So we've looked at it. We believe that it could result in possibly at least 3 full-size classrooms and 2 special needs classrooms, or possibly 4 full-size classrooms with a new media center. So we'll see what that looks like. They're going to bring a presentation back. When I got here 6 years ago, South Urban was undergoing a renovation, and part of the renovation project was pulled out was the replacement windows. Part of COVID is increased fresh air. Well, the only way you're going to increase fresh air at South Urban is break out the windows. You can't open those old windows. Those are the original windows. And it was in the project, but it had to be pulled because the board did not have enough money at the time to do that. Because the way the windows are in that building is that they're actually providing some of the support for the roof system. So Ross Tarn is in the process right now. I don't know if you got to speak to Roland or not.
I haven't spoken to her. I called him, but I haven't spoken to him, so.
But Roland says the plans are there at Ross Tarn. This is what needed to be done. At that time, it was about, I think that it was close to $1 million is sort of what they talked about was. And at the time, we had a couple million going on with less than $1 million to bond. So they they wisely had to back out of it. But if you were to replace those windows, then that makes sure that the life of that building lasts for the bond. Because the actual bond right now on that building, I believe there's still 15 years on that bond to pay off the project that was done when I first got here. So that's a possible project. The new parking lot at West Urban, we have a design on it, finalizing it. We'll be bringing that to you. Estimates right now at about $350,000, okay? Which is about what we determined. That's with sidewalks, access, everything. Lighting, may add a little bit to it. It wasn't part of the original estimate, but we're looking at about $350 to $375, which we actually have about $1.5 million of cash in capital outlay that can only be spent on buildings to begin with. And the last one, and it breaks my heart to even say it, but guys, we're going to have to demolish the old Urban High School. We've exhausted every grant funding opportunity. I've worked on this countless times with Congressman Barr's office. We've worked with the Department of Agriculture. We've looked at community centers. We've looked at everything possible, and there is not enough money. We don't have the money. As you know, we did the feasibility study. It was free because we got a grant to demolish that building and keep the gymnasium was over $3.5 million, and that was before COVID. It cost you $5 million now probably, or at least $4.5. We don't have that money. It pains me to say, we just don't have it. There's no way to do it. We've met with the Old Urban High Alumni Association. We've met with representatives of them, and their exact words to me was, Mr. Saylor, don't let that building start rotting down. Don't let it turn into another building in this county that we know, a former school building, there's 2 or 3 of them that are just falling in, roofs falling, decaying. They don't want to see that building end up like that. And especially where it's at, it doesn't need to, just for the community. So Peter and I walked that as well. To demolish that, to keep the Urban High 1930 and the marble out front and turn that into a marquee as sort of a memorial marquee for this was the site of Old Urban High School. And I know that the Alumni Association has talked about the possibility of us allowing them to put a gazebo or some type of structure there that they could pass out literature. And while we're doing that, we need to just resurface the parking lots there. As you know, they're in pretty bad shape, and fix the parking there, and that will finish that off. We're estimating the building itself was about $200,000 to tear down. That was early estimates, and probably about another $150,000 in parking lot upgrades and resurfacing. So you're looking at about a $350,000 project there, which of course we would use capital outlay cash on again. We have, as I said, we've got somewhere between conservatively about $1.6 million in cash that's restricted for these types of projects. It's probably a little bit more than 1.7, so you're still going to end up with well over $750,000 in cash. You're not leaving the next superintendent broke, okay, if there's something that does happen. And I know that's important. That's important to this board and important to the school district moving forward. The last thing today is we did just have a reassessment, and it's not on there, but I will update it if you want to put a D7, and I'll just add it at this point if it's okay, and it's just a discussion item. It doesn't need a vote, but we had our bi-yearly, I guess, or I guess it's bi-year because that's 2 times a year. It's about every 2 years we have an evaluation, of course, of the middle school, and everybody knows the issues that we have at the middle school with pyritic shell. That report came back today. Peter and I talked to the outside consulting engineering firm, and he assured us that that building is not in danger of any type of failure or anything along that line. He says there is a lot of movement. He is going to suggest to us maybe a plan of action to see if there is some further study that can be done to see why there has been some upheaval here lately. And of course, we've talked about pyritic shell in these meetings 100 times. When it gets wet, it rises and falls. That's why the ATC probably costs $1 million additional because of pyritic shell. Same thing with the last high school renovation when the lunchroom was built on, the infill portion of that building. There was special work that took place on that foundation. It was very expensive to make sure that pyritic shell didn't have an issue in that building. So the middle school is received basically, we won't say it's a clean bill of health because we know there's block and stuff that's cracked, but it received a really positive update today that it is completely safe for student occupation. So we may want to probably the one area in that building, and it's probably true in any older building, when you get a building that's now, 23, 24 years old, Peter?
Yep.
One of the first things that start to go are your restrooms. And we might want to look at a restroom renovation in that facility. And we believe that that's probably ESSER as well because it would be a water quality issue. And if we can get a lot of that old tile, that's what's breaking up. When you got ceramic tile and you got movement, it's going to break. So if we can get rid of that ceramic tile and do some different things with floor like we did at ATC, and clean up those restrooms, I think it will be something. And our goal is that middle school lasts until about 2035, because that's when the bonding will be as such at the board sitting at that time. Brian, you'll still be on the board in 2035, won't you?
He's so funny.
But at that point in time, Donna, you said you were out, right?
I'm out.
You're out. So somewhere in the mid-2030s, there'll need to be a consideration for a new school, whether you build a new high school, which is what a lot of districts do, or you build a new middle school. But that's 14 years from now. Those restrooms need attention now, and I think it would be good for our students. And Peter, I would ask that you would add that as a seventh project and look at that and see what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
With new fixtures, new stalls, tile and everything. Let's just, and we'll put as many of these facility issues to rest as we can. And as board members change and everything, it'll be less that they'll have to worry about. That's just an update. They're going to bring all that to us in August, okay?
And really happy to do it and appreciate it. Want you all to know that we appreciate being able to explore these things for you. So.
Anything else, Peter, you want to add?
No, thank you.
It blows my mind that building is 24 years old.
Yeah.
I realize just now, for this moment right now, that I'm 49 years old. And I walked in that building when it was being built. And I just can't hardly believe it's that long, that it's that old already. It's just
And I
crazy.
served on the committee to decorate it in the colors. Mr. Bonnie asked me to.
Now, Mr. Bonnie, the other night at the Kiwanis meeting, I spoke at Kiwanis on July 1st, and he brought up the middle school. He even asked about the middle school and how that had worked, and as far as the upheaval and stuff that we've seen over the years. The one positive today is that the engineer, and it was a structural engineer that did the assessment, an outside independent firm, because we wanted to make sure just for clarity's sake, I know that Ross Tarrant, they have their own inside engineering firm, but sometimes it's good just to go outside of the people that you work with all the time and get that independent assessment, and that's what we did. I'm choked here. But the one thing that he said that was amazing is that he could not find one crack on the outside wall.
Yeah.
He said the brick work and everything with that building was immaculate. There's no cracks with any of the outside walls whatsoever. And he said that's
That's so strange.
unbelievably strange.
Yeah, well, the foundations are really strong. It's just the slab, it's just responding to the
Which is
shale
exactly
underneath.
right. The foundation is strong in that building, and that's
Yeah.
what we wanted to hear, so.
That's what holds up the building.
So that's it on that report, Ms. Donna?
Okay, Peter, we appreciate you. Go get some
Thank
supper.
you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have on our agenda action items. First of all, starting with the FY22 handbooks, which includes employee, substitute, and coaches.
And it's okay with you all, we'll take all three of those at the same time. Those are the handbooks that's developed by KSBA for our school district, and they've been posted now for a few days. Everyone should have had an opportunity to look at those. The only changes that you're going to see in any of those are going to be changes that had to do with law changes because of the legislative session. We made, I think, practically very few changes. For instance, in the coach's handbook, if you remember, we went to a full-time district AD. There's no longer a high school, middle school AD. That job description was pulled out. There's been a few things like that. But overall, those handbooks have remained unchanged, and my recommendation is to approve all three of those handbooks for this coming school year.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to call for a motion to approve all three FY22 handbooks.
Make a motion.
Have a motion by Brian Covey and a second by Sheila Samples. Do we have any discussion at this time? I'd like to call for a vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving right along to the FY22 Student Discipline Code and School Supplements.
We added the school supplements here really for your review. Those are approved by the site-based councils. But the district code of conduct handbook, that is board responsibility. That is basically the student discipline code. It involves things like the attendance policies, virtual school, all of the different things that that sort of give our parents a guide on how we react to certain situations. There's a matrix in there that says if your child does this at school, this is what happens. It talks about all of your different violations in terms of discipline code violations. It talks about harassment and discrimination and appeals and procedures. There was a few changes on just some of the attendance policies. There was a new section put in there about trauma-informed care, which is a new requirement for school districts. I believe it was June 30th was the requirement that you had to have a trauma-informed care plan as part of that. So that, again, has been uploaded for a little bit. There was the one change about trauma care was uploaded again today. There's been very few changes with that, so my recommendation is to approve the student discipline code and school supplement. My recommendation is to approve the student discipline code, and the school supplements are outside of your all's purview.
Okay. Do we have a motion? Shayla Samples makes a motion. Do we have a second? Tammy Hardy makes a second. Do we have any discussion? Okay, I'd like to call for a vote at this time. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
And Rebecca, just reflect in the minute that the school supplements were there for board review only. Okay? Okay.
Okay, moving right along. We have the SBE resolution and assessments.
Now go
No,
back to
I'm
C.
back. The ESSER budget expenditures, FY22 only, 3 teaching positions at Estill Springs, West Irvin, and Estill County Middle School.
As you know, due to COVID-19, as we have discussed previously in these meetings, we probably had somewhere right in the neighborhood of approximately 200 students that were retained. Most of those was at parent request. If you remember, we had in SB 128, which was basically not a sports bill. You remember we had 15 high school students that took advantage of that. If you get this question, I had a call this week, or our office had a call about a high school student that had changed their mind and now wanted to repeat their grade level. And that was met with a no, because Senate Bill 128 had definite cutoffs that they had to notify by May 1. The board had to accept by June 1. You cannot now in July say, I made a mistake, I want to stay back. So we denied that request. If that comes to you, just that's the law, okay? But with some of the retainees, and then we have really seen guys at Estill Springs, there has been a huge enrollment number for kindergarten, and we didn't know that was coming because of remote instruction and the number of 4-year-olds that did not attend preschool. As of right now, as of today, there are 179 kids enrolled in kindergarten at Estill Springs. And to put that in perspective, they had 7 teachers with all of them at cap. With every one of them at cap, that's 168. So they were going to be well over cap.
What's the cap for kindergarten?
24 to 1.
Okay, that's what I was thinking, but sometimes change.
So this does give a little bit of room by adding an 8th teacher. I approve this ahead of time because, in all honesty, based on your site-based policies, you always do a look-see on September 1 to see if there needs to be adjustments. Well, we can't wait to September 1. That's a month of school.
That's that month of
But what I'm asking you for tonight is to amend the ESSER 2 budget. If you remember, you approved that. I want to pay for these in this 1 year out of that ESSER fund because this is a direct result of COVID. At the same thing at West Urban was projected to have like 130 third graders. And as of today, and us still enrolling students at West Urban, they now have 158. Okay? They only had 6 teachers. So at 24 to 1, that was 144 students. As you can see, they're well over cap. So we've already added the 7th teacher. The issue at the middle school is the same. There was somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 to 80 kids at the middle school were retained. What's happened, it has made rotation numbers in their rotation very high. There's some classes that have 35 to 40 kids. We can't social distance 35 to 40 kids. So what we're doing is looking to add a business/technology person that can offer instruction to our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students. And we believe we already have the person for that position that's in our district. And quite honestly, I am asking you on that one, I'm actually asking you to approve that position tonight again for 1 year. The other 2 you would have had to done anyway. But I'm asking you to approve the middle school position for this 1 year to alleviate some of the overcrowding that you have there. And again, it's COVID related. So I think it's an appropriate use of that money. And once we sort of get all this lined out, I'll bring that ESSER 2 budget back to you and just show you what changes we've made. We're going to know by then how much summer school costs. So we'll be able to shift some funds based on summer schools. The school supplies, about $70,000 needs to show up somewhere. And then, of course, we've got to start building the ESSER 3 budget for the $8 million there.
Will you bring back also a final enrollment for each grade level?
Yeah, I've actually got I'll have that for you at the August meeting. Rebecca, just make a note that we will have attendance or enrollment numbers at that time.
And also that class would allow us to have guest speakers and whatever from the community would be a good source to use our community leaders.
She's talking about the technology class at the middle school?
Class at the middle school.
Yes.
similar to what they did with Gear Up many years ago. using
Yeah, and
Georgia.
that also is going to be a focus there is the ACE program, which of course is our, it's basically your career interest and inventory program that help leads kids into the ATC and their interest levels. We can do that as well. So we'll bring back, it won't be final enrollment numbers, but it will be enrollment numbers officially at the August board meeting. And I'll make sure we put that under superintendent's report probably next time, Rebecca. So
basically, what you're saying right now with these, our enrollment's gonna be more than it was.
our enrollment is up.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's what I'm getting
it
at.
should be. And right now, we are setting, and this does not have all of the preschool students in. We're still enrolling preschool students at this time. This is right now is only showing all grades. It's only showing 106. I was talking to Tony Garrett today. It was 130. They just had another enrollment. They'll have another one here in the next few days. We're expecting somewhere in the neighborhood of 175 at South Irvin in 3rd and 4th grade, 3 and 4 year olds. So we're expecting it to be at 175. So as of right now, we've got 2,270, and we're probably short 100, close to 100 preschoolers. So we're over 2,350. Should
We're
be.
back up.
We're back up. Yeah, those retained students do have a little bit of impact. Not as big as you think. It doesn't increase by 180, but it does increase by those as they left out. So, and we're able to use the ESSER money. So the motion would be to approve the teaching position at the middle school and the use of ESSER funds to pay for all 3 positions.
Okay.
I make the motion.
Sheila Samples makes a motion. Do we have a second? Tammy Hardy makes a second. Any discussion? I'd like to call for a vote at this time. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
And I'll add the teacher to the middle school on the district staffing policy, and I will make sure to note that it's for this year only, and we'll just see how numbers go from that point on.
Okay, we're down to the CBE resolution and assessment, House Bill 563.
Yes, this is the document, or this is what I spoke to you all about last time. This is the CBE assessment, which was part of the Council for Better Education, which all school districts can become a member. There are multiple attachments here with multiple information concerning this. This resolution and assessment is to challenge House Bill 563 and the use of public funds to pay for private education. Pretty definite, there's no way this does not violate the Constitution of the state. You cannot take public funds to support private institutions. That's why private institutions have endowments. You know, that's the way they were set up.
Is it September it comes before Judge Shepard? Is it September? The suit that comes before us, Judge Shepard?
Yeah, it's supposed to, I think it's by the end of September.
That's what I was reading yesterday.
Because it doesn't really take effect until October 1, I think, and it's...
So they had dropped that part.
And all that information in there. Now, the part that this does not challenge the boundary situations that several school districts are in boundary disputes. We're not in any boundary dispute. We have agreements with every district around us, and even others where we have free and open exchange of students. And so that really doesn't impact us. But I do believe this impacts the Estill County school system because it will take public funds from our school system and divert it to other schools that's not even in the county of Estill. when you have private schools receiving state funding in Lexington and Louisville and Northern Kentucky, that takes money from our public school students. And it is my recommendation that we join CBE and that you all approve our assessment, which is a little bit, if you go to the assessment numbers, Jeremy, you were right there, that first attachment. If you go, you had it. Now, go back.
Go back one. There he is.
There it is. Why does it keep kicking out?
There you go.
Go down to Estill.
Estill.
Our assessment would be maybe it's $1,032.
That's the assessment.
That's our number of students is 2,000. They've got us at ADA, and so our assessment, it's a little over $1,000. Once you pay the assessment, we are a part of CBE. And I believe the next thing you're going to see CBE do, if we do not see some major shifts by our legislature to fund public education, to fully fund public education, which is the number one priority of the state legislature above all things. Since 1990, we have seen the percentage of money in the state of Kentucky go from 53% going to public education down to somewhere under 48%. Now, the argument will be, well, we're spending more money on public education than we ever have. Yes, but that doesn't take in for inflation. You're not spending the same percentage.
On prisons.
Yeah, and I mean, it's going to all other things. But the number one thing that the authority and the responsibility of the state legislature is fund public education. And at some point in time, I believe if there is not major movement, and we're working hard as a superintendent's organization to have those conversations, I believe you'll see CBE possibly bring another lawsuit. CBE is the group that brought about CARA in 1990.
Is the Pritchard Committee involved too?
Yeah, I mean, they're supporting, they're supporting possible action against state government. And it's a shame that's what it comes to. But that's what we've got. So the motion here would be to approve the resolution and the assessment to be a member of CBE and challenge House Bill 563.
Okay. So do we have a motion? Sheila Samples, do we have a second? Tammy Hardy. And do we have any discussion? Okay, I'd like to call for a vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
And I'm going to pass this resolution to you all, and everybody needs to sign it beside their name. And Miss Donna, I don't think there's any other.
Okay. You ready for consent items?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You want to start with approval of minutes, and you want to go through them?
Yeah, I'll go through them all. We've got the minutes from the June 17th regular called meeting and the June 29th regular called meeting. You've had a chance to review those. You've got the warrant and the payment of bills. The district assurances, we approve this document every year. As you all looked at it, when you opened it up, you're going to see that document, and it's about 100 pages long, seems like. That's got all the assurances. It says it's reduced a little bit. It used to be 120, but they put a lot of different checks on there. And basically what that says is that the district is going to spend funds and follow the rules and regulations and the law as it comes to conducting our business. You also have, as part of that, the district funding assurance statement, and we have to sign that every year for the expenditure of federal funds. So I would asking you to approve both of those in consent. The classified evaluation plan is something that came about that, as you know, for years, we've had one classified evaluation instrument. And whether you use a bus driver or a janitor or an aide or a secretary or whatever your role was, you had this same old generic evaluation form that we filled out on everybody. And it really told nobody nothing. about their job performance. So when Laura was first coming on as transportation director, she said, I'd really like to have something that is more specific to our job titles. I'd like to have a form that would evaluate our bus drivers and evaluate our bus monitors and evaluate our mechanics. So she got to looking, and we came across Covington. She came across the Covington Independent School District. Superintendent Alvin Harrison up there is a real good friend, and we basically have stole their work. I didn't call him, but I think if I did, he'd tell me, hey, go ahead. We serve on the KESS committee together, but that's what you see there in that document that is presented there in terms of the classified evaluation booklet, if you want to pull that up for them, Jeremy. And it just has every job class, so it has an evaluation instrument for each and every one of those job classes. And then, of course, a new evaluation form for each one of them. There's your instructional assistants, and there's a form. It's related to what they do in the classroom, and it's related for each one of them. So hopefully the goal here is to provide more productive feedback to our employees. I'm letting you all approve this. Technically, you probably don't have to approve it, but I wanted you all to see it and prove it, to just be able to say, yes, we're aware of this. Because somebody's going, do you know they changed their evaluation system?
Oh, yes.
You all need to know that. You'll hear it.
Guaranteed.
Guarantee it. So, and then we got KSBA membership renewal, that we renew KSBA every year. You really don't have a choice. I know in the past that's sometimes a sore spot. I think KSBA does a good job in terms of what they do, keeping us in line. And it's really a nominal fee for the work that they do for us. And then we did have some modifications on the salary schedule. It involved a change in coaching pay in the band positions for this fall. It also involved just a change in a title from college and career counselor ATC to high school and ATC. And also there was a district-wide rate put on there for data seam apprentice. If you remember, you all approved that program. We've identified 2 students that qualify for that program. They receive a lot of technology, they receive their own devices, and they receive a lot of training. And some of that training is for college credit, if I understand correctly, right, Jeremy? Or they can parlay that into?
They can. There's a lot of industry certifications that they can get just as part of the program. And it's not easy. They actually have to do training and education above what they normally have for their normal course load. They'll be working with me in a one-on-one capacity on just how to get real-world experience with technology. But then they also have this additional training and study that they have to do to get industry certifications.
And it's not part of their classwork, as he said. This is outside. We are going to allow them, if they want to co-op the one period that they normally co-op, they can do this as part of their co-op period, co-op experience, and we pay them. The board agreed to pay them as part of this agreement. So technically, it sort of, it doesn't pick up all the slack from when we lost one of our technicians, last year, but it does provide us with a couple of people that can handle some of these issues, and I think they're already starting to help us get our Chromebooks ready. So that is the other thing there. So it's my recommendation that we approve all of those consent items.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve all the consent items as discussed?
I'd make the motion.
Sheila Samples makes a motion. Do we have a second? Tammy Hardy makes a second. Do we have any discussion? I'd like to call for a vote at this time. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, we're down to Mr. Saylor's superintendent report.
Time me, 60 seconds. Notification of personnel actions, KSBA training reports. You all have received those from everybody. We've got, everybody's in good shape except for one. and we'll get that taken care of. But in terms of training requirements, the booster clubs did meet and had their first discussions in terms of a foundation for excellence for athletics and having one common booster club. Tammy, I know you served on that
Yes, sir.
committee, and I think at first, I don't think people understood exactly what we were trying to do, but I think as the conversation went on, it became a little bit more positive and wanted to explore it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Not doing nothing this year. If it's something that does come about, that it would take effect next fall, starting in July. And the big caveat in that is that out of that discussion possibly become an Estill County High School Hall of Fame or an Estill County School District Hall of Fame that would not only recognize athletics, but also important people that have been in our school system. You got the open records meeting you receive every year. There is a proof of receipt signature page, and you've got that in your folder that needs to be filled out before you leave here. You got the grand opening update and program, and we've already found a mistake on there, and we'll get that corrected, but it's not went out yet. It was just for your all's eyes only. Back to school updates, there's all your open houses and important events leading up to opening day. And please mark your calendar for the engineer picnic, breakaway at lunch from 11 to 1 o'clock on opening day. That's August 4th. And come out and enjoy a picnic in front of the high school. We'll have a big tent. We'll have food trucks. Everybody will receive a ticket, and you can take it to the food truck of your choice to receive the meal that you want. Anything you buy beyond your ticket will be your responsibility at that point, but we're just looking for a time of fellowship and getting back together and having a little fun and getting back in swing of things. And finally, you have your energy report. I know that it looks very red. We like to see green, we don't like to see red, but remember, you've got a lot of activities going on in your buildings, summer school, so there's been a lot of setbacks that's not happened.
Yes, but you also have to remember that your energy report, that is also based upon
Do I go to sign
year
in
to
or do I
year.
go over
So
here?
this is a comparison of
He
this
told me
time
to upgrade.
last year. And guess who was not in the building last year?
Two
Anybody.
students, no one.
So it's for at least the duration of however long COVID hit, that the buildings were in setback mode, you're going to have negative, what looks like a negative energy usage. Just know that if we were to compare current energy usage to 2 years ago, pre-COVID, we're on par or under.
Yeah, especially at Estill Springs and places where we had a lot of upgrades, you're way under.
We've actually, as part of some of the new software, we've got inside of the energy management software, and it's going to change how some of these reports appear to you guys. I'm waiting until, we'll try to do it on July, even though we're in July, you always remember your bills you get for the previous month. So I'm working right now to get that updated. Hopefully I can show you the new graphics at the August meeting for the July reports. And hopefully it'll give you some better line graphs of where things are.
That's it. And Jeremy took longer than I did.
Okay. So that's everything for the superintendent report. Do we have anything from our board members? Any discussion, anything going on? We're quite much.
Yep. Well, we're almost to our 2-hour limit.
Do we have any public comments from our?
Still remember, I did not post any form this time because we have opened our meetings back up to the public. So if you all want me to always do an online.
No, we just have a guest here, so I didn't know if she,
Oh, I thought you were looking at me.
no, we just have a guest here.
I do too.
I think
Because some
we should
people wouldn't
have
come
that.
anyway.
Do
I still
what?
think we should have it up,
I think that it's
because there's some people that just
important
cannot.
for people to feel like they can voice their concerns, no matter what. I mean, sometimes it's,
That's perfectly fine. We'll make sure from now on that there'll be public comment. There'll be a means by which they can make public comment from our website.
Thank you.
And the only caveat is that it has to be related to board
What do you mean,
agenda
board
in
agenda?
some way. It cannot be a topic that's outside the board agenda. And we need to put that disclaimer on that, Jeremy, because only those items that are part of the board agenda can be discussed unless the board chooses to answer one. Sometimes they're not that bad anyway, but if somebody did bring up a controversial topic,
Yeah.
and that's been happening a lot in several school districts across the state right now. They're bringing up some controversial topics. Again, we've got some very politically high-charged issues that's out there that's being batted around, so we don't want to end up getting ourselves in the middle of a discussion. It's going to take 3 hours. Our board meetings with all of the construction and stuff, we do good to stay at 2 hours. We started at about 6:06 today, so we're good, Ms. Donna, on our time frame. But it's, you just don't want to have that happen. So, nobody from the public. So I guess you're ready to adjourn.
I appreciate Brian covering for me tonight. My husband's mother is in ICU. She was a cardiac arrest on life support, and I was traveling from Cincinnati kind of back and forth, so some heavy traffic, and I appreciate Brian. So at this time, we need to adjourn.
Make the motion.
Miss Sheila makes a motion, Miss Tammy Hardy makes a second. All in favor?